Yo, what is up, YouTube? Brody here again. Made another banger in a session today. Immediately wanted to make a video and show you guys how I did this. I made, this one is a rock song, essentially, like some Midwest emo, some like shoegazy, like more aggressive rock stuff. And I really loved the mix that I got between like the bass, the guitar, and the drums. So I wanted to go through and show you guys all I did processing wise and like what that's looking like, how it's sounding the way it is, what I did, and just kind of show a new beat. I don't know, I'm excited. I just finished this, feel like it's sounding sick. I'm very excited for this to turn into a song and drop. Great successful session today. This one I was writing with Oriole, who I've been doing a lot with recently. New artist, very cool, Ohio, like heavy shoegaze, emo kind of thing. And we've been doing a lot of in-person studio sessions, making some beats from scratch, and came up with this one today that's really fun, really cool. I'm gonna go ahead and play some of it for you guys. From there, I'll go through and talk about the mix. So yeah, I feel like, I don't know, it's like very fun, aggressive, kind of emotional song. There's a lot of cool processing happening. And I think it's like one thing that I like about it is it's like kind of fun, a little more upbeat and bouncy, but then the mix is super thick and aggressive, and that's a cool contrast. That's kind of a thing I do with a lot of the Oriole songs, is I like everything being really like weighty and heavy and sludgy and kind of like impactful, if that makes sense, like slower and stronger kind of sounds. So this was me trying to put that style into a song like this. Go through the drums first. Kind of struggling there, but enough for you to hear what's going on. I'll open up and show you at first the library that I'm using. The Easy Drummer 3 death metal kit. I'll show you here is what I'm using. Sounds awesome. It's just very punchy, direct drum sound. And because it's a death metal kit, a lot of the snares are really high and tight and snappy, like pingy. So I tuned the snare down like 2.5 semitones. But aside from that, I kept it pretty stock within the plugin. But then I did some external processing. I took the snare, overheads, kick, and the ambience mics into tracks in Logic and did some processing. And then I did some bus processing as well. This sounds honestly widely different without. Okay. Way less punchy. So we'll go with the kick. I have a little bit of soothe on around the 4 to 6K frequency to just make that clickiness of the kick slightly less pronounced. I still want it there, but I don't want it to be like a metal kick drum. A little bit of R bass in there to give some more sub thump into it. Let me loop this. It's right around 60 hertz, just a little more thump. Cutting out some muddiness. Wave smack attack I like to just make things hit harder. I wanted it to sustain less, and I wanted the attack, I wanted to kind of change the ADSR a little bit. Overheads, I'm doing some smoothing, doing some soothe. Just because the cymbals are kind of harsh. Some EQ. Some compression to just kind of glue the cymbals together. Ooh, the computer is not happy right now, but just to glue the cymbals together and make the transients a little less like noticeable. I have some Pro Q3. I was carving out just on the right hand side some resonance because that crash on the right hand, on the right side of the stereo field, I was noticing was a little harsh. Just taming some of that. Then just some general shaping. I did that twice. I should have just done it more exaggerated, but those are probably two different points in the mix that I decided to change. Snare, I have a little bit of EQ taking out like the snappiness. Then I also have a send to bus 15. And I'm doing some, where are we at? Oh, I'm actually not doing it on this one. That's funny. I imported this drum kit as a template from another. Yeah, it's not there. I imported this as a template from another session of mine where I sent the snare to an aux of Steven Slate Trigger. That way I could blend in a second snare, but I was just kind of moving and grooving on this one and did not do that. But the snare kind of just sounds great as is. Then there's a lot of magic happening in the bus of the whole drum kit. We got we got the Soundtoys Radiator. Boosting quite a bit. Some low end and just raising the input just to do some like tube clipping on everything. Then similarly, I'm running the Sonics Oxford inflator. And I'm riding the input up a bit to kind of do a little more soft clipping type thing. Like it's kind of, this is a sine wave shaper, I believe, but it's got a limiter within it. So raising the input, leaving the output as is, it just is clipping the signal even further. And I really wanted that punchy sound with these drums, kind of akin to like I don't know, some of like the modern Gen Z shoegaze stuff where it's like very aggressive. Whoa, sorry, I feel like I should keep my mastering chain as I can because it's shaping the sound a lot. I want you to get the full effect, but I'll turn it up if I have to. So it's obviously louder, but I think there's a lot more, instead of just volume, there's like some perceived loudness happening by squashing all the transients. So I'm kind of riding the kick and snare pretty heavily into this, and then this is evening it out. And I think it just really makes them pop more, really makes them more aggressive. After that, I'm running the API 2500 bus compressor, just to glue everything a little bit more color kind of compression happening. Okay, I'm going to turn off at least. Okay. Ozone on my mastering chain is pretty processing heavy, so I'm going to see if that'll help. Pretty subtle. You don't really hear that much of a difference, but I feel like it just kind of is taming it more, bringing it together. Then some EQ. Making the mids making the mids have more lows, cutting out some of the mid-range of the mid of the signal, and then on the sides boosting that mid-range to kind of change the stereo width a little bit. Those are kind of decisions I was making like deeper in the mix. Like the drum tone was set up, but then I realized like, oh, once the guitar and bass and everything else is in there, I wanted to do a little more. Same with this. Like kind of inconsequential on its own, but then in the mix, that's where I changed it. So yeah, that really takes this drum kit from sounding like, when I'll go A, B again, it really is such a big difference. really brings them to life. Like that's just a whole different sound. And then we got drums. I'll go to the bass next and show what's going on there. So first of all, I'm sidechaining the bass and the guitars pretty aggressively to the kick drum in the drum kit. I think that adds to the energy as well. That pumping just makes everything feel so loud and aggressive. It's like the kick is so loud that everything's moving. Like I feel like that is a thing that I've taken from like rap production, and I'm trying to implement it into this to just add that punch. So the bass, kind of similar thing to what I'm normally doing. I'm running 2 signals, a DI that I'm then processing with an amp sim, and my own amp that I'm miking up. So I have a Marshall amp head right over here that I get all of my guitar tones from, but I'm also using it for the dirt section of my bass. So I'm running it through the Marshall gain and then a fuzz pedal, doing a little bit of EQ to get out some of the high end, and then some stereo widening with micro shift to get this. Then layering it with this, which is just a clean signal into the Ampeg SVT, ultra low on, kind of scooping the EQ a bit, then into a LA3A compressor, and then topping it off with some distortion from Decapitator. Really nice sound. Then when you blend them together, I'm doing a bunch on the bus of that as well. Some SSL comp, quick fluid more, some EQ, just shaping. It wasn't. I kind of have dead strings on the bass right now, so I brightened it a little bit. I'm doing some multi-band compression just to catch any notes that I hit too hard or there's like a build-up of a frequency, like the popping here and then the low end here. Brightening it with the Aphex Vintage Exciter, compressing it more together with the distressor. It looks crazy because I'm doing a ton of gain reduction, but it's only at a 2-to-1 ratio, and I like the distortion that the distressor plugin gives. Just makes it more aggressive. This is my sidechain. A little bit of flavor, EQ, and then R-bass again. After I R-bassed the kick drum, I found that I needed to give the bass more low end as well to kind of make them fit in a pocket together. So it's without the bus processing. I'm gonna add everything so you can hear. I rely a lot on bus processing. Same situation with the drum kit and the bass. That's what really brings it to life. I find that I work broad strokes and then go inward. If I put all this bus processing on, and then, for example, the kick isn't hitting the way it should, then that's when I go in and add these plugins and do things to make it go better. But I like to process groups and like large sections of the mix first, and then go in if a problem develops. I find it's like the quickest way to get things sounding right and the best way to like make everything sound connected. I feel like when I work this way, it sounds like a song and not a bunch of individual instruments, if that makes sense. Then we go to our guitar. Same situation here. A ton of processing here. I was getting a little bit I was having a hard time being decisive with this, which is why there's so many EQs. I wound up, another thing that's really important, I wound up while I was shaping this guitar tone using a reference mix. I have adapters metric AB, and I put that in my master track, and I was ABing, I loaded up another song as a reference that I really liked the mix of, and I was flipping between the two of them and like listening for differences. And I normally don't use a reference mix to shape my mix, but just as like a bearing of what a mix of the genre sounds like. That way I can make the decision to do something the same or different. But where it really comes in handy is with guitar tones and resonant frequencies. I find that guitars can be really tricky to mix because there's so much noise and like there's so much noise, so much like harsh frequency that it's hard to decide what harsh frequencies are good, which are bad, where it needs to come out. And I find that I'll think my guitar tone is sounding really nice, and then when I compare it in a reference mix, I'll catch a resonant frequency like a hiss or a high sound that is in there that my ears went totally numb to. And that's what a lot of these EQs are. Was I did a reference and spotted some extra frequencies that needed to duck out. And as I go through my plug-in chain here, you'll kind of hear all that's happening and how much that makes a difference. But I'm going to start by going in and then out. So the way this worked, I've been quad tracking my rhythms a lot lately just to kind of get a more interesting tone out of them. They're running all through my Marshall amp, but I did doubles with my fuzz pedal and then doubles with the Boss HM2 distortion pedal, which I think has a really nice high end to it. So I kind of have my like dark, like beefier tone and then my more defined high end tone. Then I'll blend the two of those to get the tone sitting the way I want it to. So here's just the fuzz. Really love that. Really love the breakup. It feels like aggressive but warm. It's like this weird juxtaposition of like soft but really dirty, fuzzy, if you will. But I did that, and then a layer with the Boss HM2, just this really grindy, like a metal pedal. But I love it in this kind of context. I love what it does to the high end. Very similar tone between these two, but when you combine them, it's really special. And they sound similar on their own, but when you combine them and remove one, you can really hear what is different between them. Then on both of these, I'm running Soothe, just to get rid of some of the 4K harshness, some balancing EQ, let's see, I'll show you some specific to each take resonance. So this was, let's see, too dark, so I made it brighter. Then I cut out some mids, and I cut out this, which you'll hear. And that's a sound that's what like I'm talking about, that you might go totally numb to and you don't notice it's there until you listen to your mix again 2 weeks later, and all of a sudden all you hear is like a high end screech through everything. Then same processing going on this one. That one's a little bit higher. And then I'll go through the plug-in chain here. Got Pro Q3 getting out some more. A little more Soothe. This time a different preset, just to kind of tackle it differently. The other one was towards the 4K, and this is a more general. Get some EQ, balancing, another frequency. I love that riff. Compressing it pretty hard, just because I want there to be a lot of energy, like slamming, like CLA style rock mix, you know. some more EQ, just some general stuff. A lot of this EQ, like I mentioned, some of it resonance frequency stuff, some of it is like as the song progressed, just making more decisions. And instead of being destructive and changing an old EQ, I just add a new one. That way I can remove it if I then change my mind. So I view the steps of EQ as like different steps in the thought process, like an undo button, if you will. I have radiator. Adding some more saturation. Another EQ, Valhalla, reverb, 9%. I just like the sound of like a little bit of, like it sounds unnatural sometimes without it. It's like it makes it sound like you're actually playing a guitar in a room and you stop and then there's some natural reverb. So yeah, that's what we got between the guitar, bass, and drums. It sounds fat on its own. Sweet. And then I kind of want to go through, I'm focusing on this for this mix because this is like the part of it, well, mix, production, etc., that I really want to talk about is the bass, drum, guitars. And similar to how on all of these different buses, it's making a big difference when you A/B the group effects. My master chain is very similar. So without it, it doesn't sound as beefy. That kick and snare is way too loud. But I'm doing a similar like soft clipping effect on my master that tames the kick and the snare, but then it makes them really punch. Versus if I would have just turned the snare and kick down to an appropriate volume, then when you start limiting it more, then the kick and snare go away in the mix. So by like really hitting the master hot and clipping the kick and the snare, I mean that's not new. That people have been purposely clipping things since like the 70s on old Neve consoles, but it's like always, I don't know, I love it. It's such a nice way to like add character and aggressiveness in like a transparent way. I don't want to say transparent because if you know it's obvious, but it doesn't sound like there's distortion on the drums. It just sounds like the drums are really hitting hard. So I'll go my tape emulation. Not much change. Little Pultec on the master. That does a lot. It brings the mids forward. It makes everything sound more focused. Got Isotope. Just doing some limiting, some clipping, some imaging stuff. EQ, imager, some tape drive. I'm going to mute that one again, but you can already hear from that little bit that it's starting to bring the energy up. Got an EQ, just taming the lows, cutting off unnecessary low end. Very subtle soothe. Just kind of getting any harshness out. It's really not audible, but I just like to do it as like an insurance. Then I have Oxford Inflator, which is where a lot of the magic is. Same as my drum kit, where it is just like really soft clipping and making everything punch more. I'm not writing the input because I wanted it to be a little more tame. Then I have my Pro L limiter. Awesome. And I think that just like really makes it punchy. Another thing though to note is another reason it's punchy is because of the like way that I wrote it. So like writing having the kick drum sidechain, both the bass guitar and the rhythm guitar really makes it sound like everything's trying to come out at you and adds a lot of energy. But I'm also specifically, this is standard for rock and heavier stuff, a lot of metal, but I'm like syncopating. I'm matching up. So like the kick drum, the bass, and the rhythm guitar are all hitting kind of like a unit. Like they're all one big instrument. And if you write that way, that the bass, guitar, and kick drum are all on lock with each other, of course, it doesn't have to be one to one. Like you can give them each room to do their own thing. But if they all follow the same groove, it makes it sound a lot heavier. Of course, it varies per genre, but in like rock and metal, that's like the way to do it. Especially on this like little breakdown section. Yeah, I don't know. I love doing that. I think this turned out really cool. And there is a lot of other cool production going on in here. I did a bunch of weird ambient stuff, some acoustic guitar and things, but it's pretty simple. There's a lot going on, and that definitely is the center of the song is the drum, bass, and guitar, but the character of the song is all of that, all of the extra elements in the world building, I like to call it. So I don't want to discredit that, but today I wanted to talk about the main meat of the mix today. Yeah, but this is really cool. I got some pads going on with my guitar reverb pedal. Some acoustic, more acoustic, some EMO slide guitar, and yeah, that's essentially it. That's how I made this beat. That's how I made this like really modern, punchy, heavier shoegaze, Midwest emo, rock, metal, buzzword song. Definitely key takeaways: sidechain, soft clipping, a lot of bus compression and glue, and using a reference mix to catch any resonant frequencies. I think those are the biggest things that I learned from this beat. And yeah, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or anything that I should go in detail more about, comment below, DM me. I'm always down to talk. I say it every time, but I mean it. But yeah, good stuff. Appreciate you if you came this far. Seriously, it really means a lot. More videos to come. I've been having a lot of fun with these. Thank you guys for all the kind words. It's really made it a lot. It's really motivated me to keep putting these videos out whenever I see you guys saying nice things and enjoying it and coming up to me at shows and all of that. It really, I don't know, crazy. I don't want to get too into it, but I know this is a really small channel and I never expect much from it. So hearing people say that this has helped them, I don't know, it's cool. It makes, I don't want to get super heady about it, but I just want you guys to know that I do really appreciate it. And I want to share the love and the knowledge as much as I can. So really appreciate it. With that being said, peace out.